Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Tonight's guest is somebody who works for hoopmag.com. He writes for them and co-hosts the podcast called The Hot Takes and Shot Fakes to talk about the NBA Finals and other league stories. Josh Eberley, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I know it's been a scheduling nightmare for us to finally link up.
I know, right? All right, so the Finals begins tomorrow night. And to me, the top storyline of this Finals is Kawhi Leonard and his status among the NBA's best players. What do you say is the top storyline of these Finals?
I'm hoping, and maybe this is optimistic, that the storyline is that the Warriors are defeated rather than defected. And by that I mean it would be nice to see the dynasty end naturally with the team besting them rather than Kevin Durant leaving and us always wondering how many rings they left on the table.
That's it. Very interesting. And speaking of Kevin Durant, do you think that we'll see him or DeMarcus Cousins in this series?
Yeah, I was in Portland when the Blazers got eliminated by the Warriors, and in there earlier, watching all the warm-ups, I saw DeMarcus Cousins on the floor. He looked really good, and keep in mind that was over a week ago now. 2 weeks ago, I think, tomorrow. I think he's going to be ready. I think we'll see him in the finals, maybe not game 1, but game 2. Kevin Durant, I do think we'll see as well towards game 3 and 4, but I'm less certain.
Yeah, because there's some talk that he's definitely going to be out games 1 and 2. I know he's with the team. That's very interesting. I think he will be back maybe for game 4. If I had to make a guess, I'd say he's back for game 4, and I think we could very well see Boogie by then, too. What is your pick for this series?
I think I'm going to say Warriors in 6. I would love for it to be deeper. I'd love to see a 7-game series. I'd love to see the Raptors pull it off and really, really shock the world. But, the Warriors are a dynasty for a reason, and even with Durant banged up, possibly not in the series, I mean, they still are going to have 4 Team USA members out there on the floor at some point in the series. Toronto's played great basketball, but they are insanely reliant on Kawhi Leonard, similar to the Cavs of LeBron James in the prior couple of years. If they don't get the absolute most out of Marc Gasol, Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, it feels like too much of an uphill fight.
Yeah, I agree with you. Warriors in 6, and that feels like the consensus pick, don't you think?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's something to being first in the NBA and making the bold predictions, but when you have a team as good as the Warriors, and it's just tough to look around. I mean, I had Raptors in 7 against Philly. I had them in 7 against Milwaukee. This is a very good team, and they just played 2 very good teams. On top of it, Golden State's going to have the rest. They have the experience. They've been here before. It's a stacked deck.
Yeah, they have the rest, which is big to me. And another interesting thing is the Warriors bench. It played very well in the Portland series, I thought, especially when after Kevin Durant got hurt. Like guys like Alfonso McKinney and Jordan Bell had moments, and they have to have moments in this series in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Warriors really got back to doing what they did. Before Durant got back there, they were a 73-win team. The strength in numbers motto didn't feel like a cheap gimmick as much as it has, since KD has been there. Steph has been fantastic in the 5 games without Durant. Draymond Green has been one of the 5 or 6 best players in the playoffs, at this point, period. They really, really are a strong group. But, I mean, you can say the same for the Raptors, who got absolutely nothing out of their bench against Philadelphia. Fred VanVleet was unplayable. And then against Milwaukee, Fred VanVleet has the best 3-game long-range shooting streak ever. And Serge Ibaka's contributing, and Norman Powell's a factor. So you'd think if there was an advantage for Toronto on paper, it would be coming from the bench, especially if KD and Boogie are late to the series. But we'll see.
I agree with you that the Raptors have the bench advantage, and the VanVleet thing was sort of remarkable. He was, like you said, unplayable, and then he miraculously turned it around in that Bucks series, and I think that changed that series a lot, other than the sudden, no-show of the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it was 14-17 games 4 through 6 or something like that from 3. That's insane. I mean, Steph Curry's never done it. That is ridiculous efficiency. He was automatic. Kyle Lowry had a very strong series. Going into Game 6, the Lowry and VanVleet had already had I think 6 more threes than they made combined prior in the whole 7-game series against Philadelphia. It was just a turnaround for the Raptors guards. I don't know what the cause and effect was. Maybe it wasn't having as long defenders. Maybe it was the Bucks rolling on the screens and coming down, allowing the role players to shoot. But if that continues, you've got to at least think the Raptors have a chance if they keep that kind of energy from their guard shooting.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And another thing is that don't forget about Andre Iguodala and his health. He played in that Game 4, didn't he? Against the Blazers?
Iguodala was out for Game 4.
He was out for Game 4, that's right. And then he should be back for Game 1. I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, I'd assume he's been back. His name hasn't been mentioned in the injury report the last couple of days. It's pretty crazy, though, to think about. I mean, Portland got swept without KD and without Iguodala in the final game at home. That's the kind of team that Toronto's facing. As great as they've been, and this will be the best defense. This will be the best defense that Golden State's faced this year and possibly since they've gotten Kevin Durant. But, man, for them to get a sweep in the conference finals, missing the pieces that they had missing, Boogie, KD, Iguodala for a game, woof.
That was very impressive, and I mentioned that their bench came through in that Portland series and had moments like Bell and McKinney and those guys. Even Livingston had moments, and that's where those guys contributed in the absence of Durant and then Iguodala for the one game. Who do you think will be the Finals MVP?
This feels like if Curry doesn't win it this year, is he ever going to win it? It's set up for him. In the event that, I don't know, whatever percent you want to put on it, 20% chance that Toronto actually ends up winning the series and chucks the world, it's going to be Kawhi. I don't think there's any hesitations there. But more likely than not, it's going to fall. The onus is going to be on Steph Curry to create the offense. There's not going to be an option for him to kind of lean back, especially against KD. His team's favored. I think the strong money is on Steph Curry to get his first Finals MVP.
I totally agree with you there. I know you don't have much time left, so we're going to get to the other topics real quick. The Rockets, there was reported by Woj this afternoon that they made all picks and players available except for James Harden. Do you think they actually make some roster turnover this summer?
Yeah, I think they have to. You can go back and forth on the Rockets. Did they just run into this tough team? But I'm just not sure the method, the way they played basketball is going to work long term. I just don't think a team can win with one guy dribbling, 25 times everybody watching him. James Harden's an incredible player. I'm not saying anyone can do what he does, not at all. But I just don't know that it's a winning recipe. And even when their offense was humming, I really do think there's something psychologically, if you play basketball, where if you're not involved on offense, you don't try on defense. You don't push for the offensive rebound. You're not pushing up the floor. And I just think come playoffs, a lot of the guys other than Harden were disengaged. And Clint Capella wasn't the same guy this year. And, allegedly there's a little exchanging of words between Paul and Harden before they walk off the floor in the elimination game. And I think this team does need to switch. Now, how do they do that? That's a whole different question because they've got some tough deals to move.
Yeah, that Capella contract isn't that terrible, but the Chris Paul one, I can't help but think about Chris Paul to the Lakers. That might be my earliest thinking about pulling the trigger bold prediction of the summer, right? Does that make sense, putting him with his the boat buddy and LeBron?
I think I was thinking about this today too, and I thought of 5 teams who would maybe take a run at Paul in that ginormous, dirt pile of a contract he's got behind him. They're the Heat, Pat Riley always wanting to add a star. The Timberwolves, who are kind of stuck with some contracts, need to convince Karl Anthony Towns that they're a good franchise. The Knicks and the Lakers, because they're both desperate, and if they miss on their initial targets, he might be a piece that they can still sell to their fan bases as being more of a competitive team. And then possibly the Wizards, if they wanted to do something with, staying competitive while Wall was out and maybe making that trade. So those 5 teams. Honestly, Lakers, I could see it, but I can only see it in the event of they miss on Davis isn't coming. They miss on Kyrie isn't coming. What are we going to do? They trade for X and Paul, and they sell a Paul, Braun, X, and they probably bring in Melo too and just go with it.
Yeah, that would be interesting if CP ended up with LeBron. You mentioned Anthony Davis. he met with David Griffin today. Griffin's obviously the president of basketball ops with the Pelicans. Do you think that it's a lock he gets traded?
I have a lot of faith in David Griffin, but I do think Davis is kind of full of, the proverbial BS. And, he's talked and talked and talked and talked since he's been in the career that all he cares about is winning, and yet all we've kind of heard is he wants LA. And when I'm getting those wires crossed, I'm thinking that Davis has made up his mind. He wants to go be a celebrity in Los Angeles. He wants to play in LeBron, whatever the reason. I think that's where his mind is set. So I don't think that he is with the Pelicans at the start of next season. I think, David Griffin feels it out and probably deals him before the year starts, gets a package he's happy with.
Yes, I agree. I think David Griffin wants the best package available. You just mentioned the Lakers and how AD wants to play there. There's obviously that story that came out by Baxter Holmes. What did you make of that?
Wow. What a story. I mean, everyone's talking about Rob Pelinka's fictitious doctoring of Kobe Bryant, seeing Heath Ledger, or watching The Dark Knight and having dinner with Heath Ledger, and then using how Heath Ledger locked into the role to lock into a game against the Knicks. And it's funny because it's so believable, and I don't know if you read this article. I think it was Vanity Fair a few years ago. There was like a whole article about how Kobe Bryant went on like a safari and studied a cheetah and watched how cheetahs attack, and he tried to turn that and use that in changing his jump shot to be more aggressive off the bounce. And like, it's a believable enough story until he gets dinged with the fact that he passed away 6 months before The Dark Knight came out. I mean, that detail was so hilarious. But on the whole, I mean, the Lakers are a tire fire. Worst record the last 6 years, tied with the Knicks. Pelinka looked like a fool. Jeannie looked like she doesn't have a handle on what's going on. Magic seems like an asshole. It's not great. It's not great if you're LeBron. And even him, even Rich Paul and Clutch, it just feels like there's a lot of elements in there that are contentious, and it doesn't sound like where I would want to lay my head at night.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things in that article about Rich Paul's presence around the team and how that was a distraction.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be. And I think, like, I looked at the Celtics the last few years, and specifically the Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, Isaiah Thomas Celtics team that overachieved and that people loved, and yet there was this feeling of, like, whatever you guys do is cool, but none of you are really Celtics, and the second that I get a whiff of a better deal, I'm moving you. And, I harped on age for that. I'm like, you can't build a culture when everyone doesn't feel like they're part of the long-term plan and they're all just assets. And now I think the Lakers have sort of mirrored that, where, like, you talk about wanting to build a culture and bringing in a coach that's known for, player relations and Luke Walton, and then you change up the management, that vibe goes out the window, LeBron comes out, the direction changes, everyone in that locker room's feeling like a poker chip rather than a player, and with Rich Paul just rubbing it in your nose every day, I don't know how you, as a human, just move on. I mean, it's tough. You can't just be a professional. It's your life.
Yeah, exactly. And one more for you is Kevin Durant. We were just talking about chances he plays in the finals. He's obviously a free agent this summer. June 30th is actually when free agency starts. Did you hear about that? That they moved it to 6:30 Eastern on that Sunday night rather than midnight on July 1st?
Yeah, I mean, we got to know when Timofey Mozgov signs right off the hop for $64 million. We need to know where Timofey is going as soon as possible. No, I mean, I got a few minutes here, so if you got a few more, fire them off. But, like, I am excited. It's gotten to the point where, like, we almost overcover the player movement aspect, but fans love it, and that's what they want to hear.
Yeah, so Kevin Durant's obviously the biggest name free agent, and Kawhi Leonard, too. Don't forget about Kawhi, but Kevin Durant's the one that everybody's talking about. Do you think that the Knicks are the front runners for him, or do you think the Clippers thing is real?
Yeah, I think the Clippers thing is real. I think it's hilarious because there were people who I'm sure punched their ticket when the championship odds came out, and the Knicks were 16-1, and 2 max slots, and Kyrie and KD, and now, all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, KD's rumored to the Clippers, Kyrie's rumored to the Lakers, Knicks could be twiddling their thumbs or paying somebody they shouldn't be. And again, like, this is why it's silly to bet on anything before a lot could happen. I mean, dominoes are going to fall. KD and Kawhi will go first, I think. Kyrie will go next. But even a guy like Chris Middleton, I think, could really change the direction of a franchise. If you've got a Kemba Walker and a Chris Middleton in LA or in New York, those are guys that are going to make you a playoff team overnight, or should make you a playoff team overnight. So we'll wait and see what happens. But this is going to be a very eventful offseason.
Yeah, it's the most intriguing offseason in my mind since the one where LeBron James went back to Cleveland in 2014. I remember Melo was a free agent that year, and there was so much drama. And I remember Bill Simmons broke a story about how Melo to the Lakers was like a real thing, and I was just like shocked. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that actually, but I do remember like people standing outside LeBron's house and tweeting like photos of a moving truck and me trying to figure out if this is like an internet hoax or the real deal. But I mean, obviously it was the real deal.
Yeah, and then my other favorite free agency memory was when DeAndre Jordan initially agreed to the deal with the Mavs, and then like Chris Paul and JJ Redick and Blake Griffin all convinced them to come back to the Clippers. That, I think, was 4 summers ago.
Oh, for me, I'm a Mavericks fan. That was not a fun memory.
Oh.
That was a stressful 24 hours for me.
Oh my God, I didn't know you were a Mavs fan.
I'm still so bitter about everything that happened there that when they brought DeAndre in this year, I wanted none of it.
Oh.
That was before I realized DeAndre Jordan was never going to play defense again. But even before that, I was like, no, he should never be a Maverick. I'm glad that was short-lived. The Knicks can keep him.
He's a free agent, so I don't know if they would bring him back or not. And speaking of the Knicks, you're lucky that you have Kristaps Porzingis. I really hope that he comes back and is the franchise player he was with the Knicks before the ACL injury. Him and Doncic is a very, very promising pairing out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very promising future if everything shakes out. I think, you have two blue-chip talents there. I think Luka's really, really special. I think Porzingis can be special. Really hope with everything that's gone on with KP, and one, that he's healthy, the two, he's got his head on straight, the allegations in New York, the fight in Europe. Really, really hope he's, got a solid head on his shoulder. Some of the things that have been said about him aren't true, but if they are, then that's going to alter the man for the worse.
Yeah, I really, really hope that works out for Kristaps Porzingis. So it was good to have you on today and enjoy. What do you have going on at 7 o'clock, you said?
I got men's league. Gotta go run out there and stay in shape so I can tweet faster.
All right, enjoy the finals. Maybe I'll have you on, but after free agency, we'll go over all the moves and whatnot.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right.